Okay, so I'd like to talk about what I think of as the J ecosystem, which for me is a set of disparate websites. So the forum, YouTube, GitHub, Rosetta Code, the Arraycast site I consider to be part of the J ecosystem. Stack Overflow has a few hundred um, J questions on it, and of course the J wiki. And these are silos, islands. They don't particularly talk to each other. Each of them presents its own face to the world. They have different approaches to navigation and search. The search is sometimes challenging. And of course, for J, search is particularly challenging because it's very hard to use a conventional search engine to look for J code. Um, as I look around at what I call the ecosystem, my feeling is that it's in a state of collapse. And I decided to consider this a problem and to see if I couldn't address it in some way. And the approach that I've taken is something I'm calling the J MegaNav. And this is it. It's a blue stripe that appears at the top of most of the websites that I mentioned. And all it does is it serves as a launch pad for a dropdown. And if you hover down from above, it appears. We'll start with Arraycast. Arraycast is an interesting site because it, to my knowledge, doesn't have any search mechanism, and the navigation is very much page-based and fragmented. And what I tried to do was to come up with a way of presenting each of these ecosystem islands, as I think of them, with a single consistent navigation and search mechanism. And we'll see that as we go through it. So these are all of the episodes from Arraycast. There are, I think, about 97 of them, something like that. These are the main pages. There are the notes pages. And of course, and this is part of the reason I'm sort of unhappy that the Squarespace site that Arraycast uses doesn't have search. The people who do Arraycast have gone to a lot of trouble to create very high quality transcripts and show notes, and they're just not searchable other than using the site syntax on a generic search engine, which of course is a fair amount of trouble. What happens is if you click on a page title, you just jump to that page. And what's interesting is that your MegaNav is still present and it maintains its context. So without ever going backwards, which is one of the most pernicious features of the web, it's always two or three steps forward, two or three steps back to your point of origin, and then you sally forth again from there. With this approach, you don't have to do that. You never go back. You're always moving forward. The search mechanism behaves more or less the way you'd expect. If you search for dyadic transpose, for example, you'll get those pages, those main pages, notes pages, and transcript pages that include the phrase dyadic transpose. Clicking on one will take you to it. I don't, unfortunately, yet have the ability to jump to the first occurrence, but of course you can use the browser's native search facility to find it. This is a fairly simple one. A more complex one would be the other thing I should say is that that's a phrase search. You can do a bag of words search. And there's also title search. Title hits are really good because that means that the whole topic of the document, whatever it might be, is about whatever you're looking for, which may be more helpful than just an occurrence of the word in the body of the document. If we look at the forum, this is a little more complicated. You still have phrase search, word search, and the title filter. But in addition to that, we have a list of all of the email addresses that have ever posted to the forums. And there's a little map showing going back from 1998 forward, showing the years in which each email address has been active. And you can search for individuals, and clicking on an individual email will show you just the emails for that individual deselecting will give you, once again, the full set of emails, of which there are over 120,000. The search is still pretty good, despite the volume of documents that it has to go through. And again, as with Arraycast, there's phrase search, word search, and a title filter. Stack Overflow behaves exactly the same way. I should say that one of the problems that was solved here was code search. So if you search for punctuation, which is, of course, what JSource code typically is, a normal search engine will tend to discard it or treat it as Boolean query syntax. So that's been overcome here. And if you want to search for the most common J phrase there is, you can do that, and it comes up quickly and with highlights for the hit. GitHub is another good one. So there are 220 some owners of repositories that contain GitHub code. Now, of course, GitHub contains search, but there isn't really any easy way to let yourself soak into and marinate all of the J source code in GitHub. But this is the way that you can do that. You can do searches against everything, or you could pick, for example, just the repositories that are owned by J Software, of which there are 119. So now we're just looking at J Software files that include the plus over divided pound syntax, or you could pick a particular repository. You'll notice that every time you pick something, the search field flashes. That's to remind you that you've got a search going. So if you don't get any results when you click, it's probably because there are no results for that subset of the documents. But you could pick individual repositories. And as with Arraycast, as with everything, if you select a title, you'll go to the corresponding file. Rosetta code behaves similarly. 15 puzzle solver, you'll go to the 15 puzzle solver section. YouTube has, about 120 some videos, some of which have transcripts, so you can actually search for text, and you'll get hits from within transcripts or descriptions, or possibly titles. The wiki is an interesting case. One of the things that is always, I'm sure it's possible, I could just never figure out how, to do a search within a category in the wiki. So here on the top section, we've got the whole wiki hierarchy. And if you select and down here, you've got excuse me, I'm juggling my video here. So there are, given multiple indexes on the pages, there are 9,000 some documents, virtually speaking, in the wiki. And you can search here just as you can anywhere else. What's interesting is you can actually search within groups, which is something that, as far as I can tell, MediaWiki doesn't support. So you can just search for hits within a user group, within the user groups, for example, or just within developers, or what have you. So these are the categories that Bob has put into a hierarchy. If you go far enough to the right, you get into what I think of as the wiki slush pile. So this is, these are tags that have been applied to documents by the community. And so there's quite a range of information available here. But you can search this just as you can search the hierarchical categories. Yeah, I guess that's about it there. I don't normally, when I'm doing this kind of thing, try to make curatorial decisions, but one of the things I thought it might be interesting to be able to do was to be able to search just vetted material. And I don't know if this is the right vetted material, but the idea here would be to have a reference section that would be entirely composed of vetted material. So if you do a search for something, you're going to get not just general community contributions, but contributions that have been vetted by the powers that be, whoever those might be, somebody that you trust. And then there's a new to J section, which is the same sort of thing. The guarantee here is that anything you search for is going to be designed for newcomers, designed for people who are trying to learn the language. So you're not going to get anything that you feel like is impossible to comprehend. So I guess that's it. The idea, and I think we're getting there, is that the J MegaNav turns the J ecosystem, which I would say is characterized by separation and invisibility, into an integrated ecosystem, all of whose resources are readily apparent, consistently presented, and easily accessible. I think this might be part of a community building effort. I think newcomers to J may find it a little baffling that there's so much information in so many different places, and in fact may not even be aware that most of that information is available at all. But if they had the MegaNav in hand, all the information would be equally accessible, equally available, and very much apparent. And I think that's all I've got, Bob.